Hello, residents of Collinsville. Kevin Wrigley, resident of Collinsville, once again with a quick short video. Wanted to talk to you guys about another claim that I've been hearing over the weekend when talking to residents who have been visited by the pro crowd. I have people who say they would technically be for removing home rule, except for the fact that they've been told that getting rid of home rule would give power or money or our taxes or our revenue or some variation of that story back to Springfield. Could not be further from the truth. Essentially, what happens with home rule is it eliminates the safeguards and guardrails that were put in place to protect the resident from a local government getting out of control. Think about just this little box, and this is where your local government resides as non-home rule. And put home rule into place, and those guardrails all fall down, and then they are free to do whatever they want, which is why you see home rule communities continuously increase their total tax burden on the residents. You see home rule communities continuously stray from core city services. They're not doing just what a typical city would do. They're getting involved in all kinds of other, what would typically be private business enterprises, real estate development, real estate speculation, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. And you'll see that the majority of these home rule communities, if you look at the geographic distribution of them, the majority of them are in the northeastern part of the state in Cook County. So it is very much a Springfield designed tool. They're trying to get more home rule communities. The proponents will say that it gives power back to them, but Springfield loves having home rule communities. They want more home rule communities. Matter of fact, the IML and other lobby organizations are trying to lower the population threshold to 5,000 residents versus 25,000 residents. What's also really irritating is I've heard that some of the proponents have said, well, the residents voted to have home rule in 2005. That could not be further from the truth. At that point in time, there had been referendums on home rule in several of our surrounding communities. As a matter of fact, one very successful community to the north, Glen Carbon, had a referendum on home rule because it doesn't just have to be 25,000 residents. A town of any size can hold a public referendum to become home rule. Glen Carbon did just that. And at that point in time, local news was a lot more robust, and they were covering this issue. So it was a big local news issue, what Glen Carbon was doing. It was handily defeated, like 75 to 25 in Glen Carbon. So it was right on the heels of that when we got the home rule power. Now, our officials at that time could have also proposed a referendum and let the residents decide whether or not we wanted home rule. They would have had to make a case for it, but they didn't choose to do that. They chose to basically have Springfield force home rule down our throats without a vote on it. Residents got no say in that. So this is our first opportunity in 17 years to actually have a say on home rule and reclaim some of our power on dictating taxes, debt, and other fiscal matters. Let's take a look at a back-to-back comparison of some of the powers that, or guardrails, if you will, that are in non-home rule, that are not in home rule. So if you look right here, non-home rule for bonds or debt, it requires a referendum. Home rule, there's no referendum or vote required. There is also zero debt limit. Property tax increases. Non-home rule, they cannot go over 5% or it would trigger the truth in taxation law. They would have to notify each resident and have a special hearing. Non-home rule, they are exempt from this law. Can be increased without limit and you have no say in it. Same thing with sales taxes. They can be increased or enacted as non-home rule. We've talked about that before, a non-home rule sales tax. They don't want to discuss that though because they would have to go to the citizens and make the business case for it. Of course, with home rule, as we know, there's no limit and they can enact it at any time or increase it at any time. So if you think about it, when we look at other taxes and fees or anything else, I've made the claim a couple of times that having a home rule entity is like a local government operating without a constitution, essentially. And that claim is based on if you are non-home rule, a local government has enumerated power. It's basically laid out, just like a constitution has enumerated power that the federal government is allowed to do. Everything else is reserved to the states or the people. So if you put that analogy with the local government, they have enumerated powers. And the powers that are not enumerated to them are reserved to the residents. But when you have home rule, there are no enumerated powers. they can literally create any regulation, any ordinance that they like. And this power is to be construed liberally. It literally says that in the Illinois Constitution. It's pretty much carte blanche power, and it's hard to challenge that in any type of court because of that statement in the Illinois Constitution. So I'm going to wrap it up there. That was already long enough, but thank you again for your time. Please consider voting yes on 8 November, which is right around the corner. It will put the genie back in the bottle, if you will, force the local government to operate in a more fiscally responsible manner. Thank you.